Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Denan Putomo, and I want to present my scenario proposal. It's about psychological conflicts in the heart of this movie, directed by Ron Howard in 2015, used a psychological approach. Okay, background the study. Basically, my proposal is telling there is a interesting psychological conflict in the legendary event of the sinking of the SS ship, which was attacked by giant red whale. There is some protagonist. His name is Owen Chase, that appointed by Nantucket Company, which is Nantucket Company is a whaling oil produce a whale oil company on the Caribbean on that age, and they appoint the Owen Chase, which is a really experienced man when he sailing on the middle of ocean and know well on the ocean. Uh, because the Essex ship is seen by attacked by a giant whale, the crew Essex is stranded in the middle of ocean with no food. This is really interesting. I want to give some psychological approach, and that even it's really play a lot of psychological mental health on that crew of Essex ship. Because you're stranded in the middle of ocean. You have no food. There is a really few of choice. There is a death or life event that you experience. This is terrible event that you have to experience. Abomination act crew of the SS ship and the psychological conflict they experience. Well, when the SS crew is stranded in the middle of ocean, they have to choose few of their own men that really cannot stand up for this event, and they are dying. Before they die, they appoint themselves to be eaten by his friends. This is really abomination. This is cannibalism, but this is act to how to act for surviving. Interesting atmosphere in the era where humans are still hunting for oil because oil has not been found on the ground. This is very interesting. We study about this film. We also study about the historical human historical that humans use whale oil for they need in that age where human has not been found, when oil on the ground has not been found by human, they still need whale oil. The problem of the statement, what the psychological impact of the crew when faced with life and death problem. This is really interesting. Their psychological is being shown around. This story is not about action. It's not about romance. This is more about the human itself. You know, Owen Chase is a really experienced captain, but he has the real captain, and they argue with all of day, which is the new captain is really arrogant and want to whaling more far, and because of that caused by too far from the shore, and they being attacked by a giant white whale. And what is the psychological burden of the crew of the SS ship is going through various disaster. This is really disaster when a human mengalami sebuah pilihan untuk melanjutkan kehidupannya. Manusia cenderung untuk punya insting to be safe with their self, ya, untuk menyelamatkan diri, ya. Untuk menyelamatkan diri, di situ juga ditemui beberapa adegan-adegan event yang menyalahkan temannya yang tidak mau salah, and there's a really lot of psychological conflict in there. The objective of the study. My objective is to analyze the desperation that infected abomination on the SS crew when they were stranded in the middle of ocean. Ya. To analyze sebuah kekanibalisan. Kenapa kanibalisme bisa terjadi di tengah terombang ambingnya kru kapal Essex ketika mereka tidak bisa menemukan makanan, mereka stres, mereka tidak tahu harus berbuat apa. And then they choose their own friend to be eaten. This is really abomination. Itu adalah sebuah pengalaman yang sang narator sendiri pun nggak menceritakan, sang sumber yang ditangkap dari film ini pun menceritakan, not tell enough, but the point is they do abomination in the middle of the ocean. And then to find out how the impact of the psychological conflict in the heart of the sea. This is really interesting, the impact of psychological conflict when the crew of Essex ship is stranded in the middle of ocean. Mereka saling menyalahkan ya, mereka saling menyalahkan, mereka saling menuding, mereka saling ikhlas. Even there is a good man among that crew, even abomination even yang menyerahkan diri untuk dimakan agar teman-temannya tidak dimakan ya. And the benefit of this study, the theoretical benefit is the author hopes that this article can be useful for readers and provide more knowledge about how serious is psychological conflict that afflicts humans. The author hopes that this article can provide benefits to the readers in terms of literature. Basically, the benefit of this theoretical, which I use psychological conflict theory, I use the psychological approach. This is really interesting when you saw some humaning even film and you use psychological approach. Is really interesting because you play the actor game, the actor mind, you play the story. You not play with mind, but you play with your heart. You can feel how that they really experience it in the middle of the ocean, bisa merasakan bagaimana ya cara bagaimana manusia itu tertekan, bagaimana tertekannya, bagaimana sebuah bencana, sebuah bencana yang menimpa semua kapal kru Essex dan harus melakukan sesuatu yang sangat mengerikan, which is cannibalism. The practical benefit is to gain more knowledge about the whaling condition in 19th century. This movie is basically tell the science fiction, which is true or not is still debatable, but this abad 19, this is indeed human still hunting for whale oil. Ya, manusia masih memburu paus, masih mencari minyak paus untuk menyalakan lampu, to light the lamp, to light the torch, to create some clothes with the baleen teeth on the whale. They still use the whale. A lot of things in human life need a whale. They need a whale in various humans' life. On the previous study, basically, the basic of the previous study is from Moby Dick novel. There is a novel, it's called Moby Dick. It tells about the giant white whale attack a Essex ship. It's still debatable, but the source, the one and only crew as one of the savior, one of the crew Essex that survived on the sinking event. There is been interview and asking few question, and then they create a book about it. It's called Moby Dick, just like Hidden Figures, created by Howard before the in this movie have been used to conduct and in this research type of the researchers. I use the how Ron Howard play on the movie. Ron Howard usually play in the movie that based on really confusing the alur ya. Jadi alurnya sangat membingungkan, not the strike from the point, but masih menggunakan sebuah teka-teki. The hidden figures is different, and Ron Howard menggunakan hidden figures that I use the research type of the researcher, and the related issue raised in this research. Herman Melville Johnny, Moby Dick previous research on the whale is a novel written by American essayist Herman Melville in 1851. Melville began writing a Moby Dick in February 1850 and finished it 18 months later, 1 year more than he expected. Melville builds on his experience as an ordinary seaman from 1841 to 1844, including several encounters with whalers and in Moby Dick. This is interesting. I want to tell about some interesting fact. In Norway, they still continues their tradition by whaling. They still keep whaling, which is now whale is been one of the animal had a conservation about it. You can kill whale now because it's protected. But the Norway is different. He is still ya memulai hidup mereka melestarikan their tradition ya. Encounter with whales and in Moby Dick. He was inspired by the famous white whale Mocha Dick, and the end of the book is based on immersion. But basically, on the Moby Dick novel, it tells more about the whale itself. It tells about the mysterious giant white whales, about white sperm whale. They keep great uh, uh, conspiration about it, and the movie on Ron Howard directing. Ron Howard create a new atmosphere in this movie, which is this is more focused about human experience and human psychological. And I use the psychological criticism and Dickinson poetry because this how I start mix the psychological approach by uh, start the psychological criticism and Dickinson poetry is made me uh, had a best learn about psychological on literature. The psychological approach is a unique form of the criticism in that it draws upon psychological theories and its interpretation of a text, linking the psychological and literary worlds, bring a kind of scientific aspect into literary criticism. Personality and individual differences. This is just an example how I create psychological approach on a literature thing. Psychological in literature, which is intertwines within a such field as history, philosophy, sociology, psychology, and so on. It's a discipline where language is used as a medium of expression so as to interpret man, essence, and culture. The underlying theory is the notion of psychology. According to Wilhelm Wundt, 1929, understanding psychology. According to Wundt, psychology is a study of experience that arise in humans, such as five senses, feeling, will, mind. Wundt is also a philosophical figure who sparked the forerunner of the establishment of psychology. And the notion of sociology literature that I use in this proposal is psychological criticism is an literature refers to the way in which the work of a particular writer is analyzed through a psychological lens. This approach psychologically analyzes the author of the work of character in his work. It helps the reader understand the motivation of the writer as well as the character. So I have the motivation. I want to people playing their not only their mind, their brain, they just watch the movie and they use their feeling and psychological thoughts about it when they watch a movie. I want to, yeah, help the readers understand the motivation of myself. The research method, I use a few of method, which is a type of study. Method is one of solve the problem. The research method is one of the procedure to solve problems scientifically. To find out the scientific truth of the research requires relevant data source. Type of data and data source. I use the data source of this research was taken from a famous film. I watched the film before it. I was in the heart of the sea. The movie directed by Ron Howard is very interesting to study. Method of collecting data. Okay, I use a few of method, which is collection information collection, analyze, utilize the claim dialect by considering the comes about of the investigate examine. Okay, I think that's all is about my seminar literature proposal. I really forgive me. Is I apologize if I had some wrong words or unclearly speak. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.